Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. As always, I'm your humble host, Brooks Austin, and on tonight's show, we will be joined by Cole Thompson of All Aggies to preview some of the NFL's top free agents, as well as some of the top performers at the most important positions, some really important guys from the SEC that are going to be up for some really big paydays. So we'll talk about those guys. There's not a lot of time to waste in tonight's show. We got a lot of guys to get through in just a little bit of amount of time. So we'll get right into the begging and we'll get it over with quick. However you find this show, man, appreciate you guys for being here. First of all, give us some support. I know Cole loves when I do this. We'll bring him right on. So, if you're on podcast platforms, whatever you are, 5-star review, all that great stuff. As promised, let's bring our boy Cole Thompson. He's making me laugh. He knows only I can see him in the back of the green room right here. Cole joins us via the SI.com StreamYard feed. Cole, how are we doing tonight, brother? I see you making fun of me back there, man. How are we doing?
I am having a great old time. I love doing this part. One of the biggest things I actually learned with doing the coverage of both NFL and NCAA is actually contracting and free agency. So this is one of my favorite times. The SEC is known for producing NFL talent, and when they get to the NFL, they're going to get big paydays after their rookie contracts, and there's a lot of guys who are about to get paid.
100%. A lot of guys that are really, like you said, about to get that really first paycheck. I was going through some of our notes tonight. A lot of young guys. I mean, some of these guys have been franchise tagged a couple times, but a couple of these guys are entering free agency for the first time in their NFL career. And yes, they are most definitely set for some really, really big paydays. I guess we'll start and we'll go ahead and jump right into it. I think I dropped the feed there. Guys. That we are right back in. Let's start over. So we're going to talk about some NFL free agencies tonight, and we're going to start with Chris Jones, a guy out of Mississippi State. And most of these guys, again, entering free agency for the first time. Cole Thompson of All Aggies joining us via the SI.com StreamYard feed. Sorry about all that, guys, tonight. As you notice, we are not in front of our fancy green screen tonight. We are tied directly into the Ethernet cable. So hopefully the video footage is just a little bit better tonight. Of course, I dropped the feed immediately within the first 5 minutes. For that, I apologize. But Chris Jones, a State product here, Cole, and a total game record when he's on his game, just 25 years old, finally coming into his own as a football player with all the money, primarily on the premier positions on the offensive side there for Kansas City. They cannot afford to lose Chris Jones in free agency this year, in my opinion. What do you think Kansas City does with their big defensive tackle?
Well, there's only two moves that you have right now, in my personal opinion. And one is you re-sign him, but you have to then allow other players to walk on the offensive side, or you let him walk and be able to keep that offensive core together for Patrick Mahomes. I don't see it working out either way. A team that I could see him definitely going to, if he's not offered the same deal with Kansas City, is the Las Vegas Raiders. They want to make a big-time free agency splash going into a new stadium, into a new city. And Chris Jones, one of the premier defensive linemen in the NFL, plays a mix of a 3-4 defensive tackle. You're going to put him in Paul Guenther's system. He's going to be a 4-3 defensive tackle playing a one-gap system. That is scary to think of. He's already going from there this year, and he's did a phenomenal job. If you move into a 3-4 system, you're going to move him into a two-gap player, which he's already shown he can do, and he's been able to play defensive end. I think in the end, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to make one big free agency move. And if they're going to do it, this would be the guy, a 5-year, I would go 89 to maybe $105 million deal, somewhere in that range. This is a rangy guy who can play multiple roles and be effective in the run and in the passing game as a pass rusher. I say almost $100 million is what gets it done. Probably a 5-year with a 6-year option deal. Las Vegas would definitely be a great place for Jones to land, and they have the money to do it.
Yeah, the only thing is, Kansas City definitely has the option to franchise tag this guy, and I think they'll probably explore that option if it comes to those kind of numbers that you're talking about. 5 years, $100 million. Talking about $20 million a year when Kansas City's got an opportunity in a, let's call it. I mean, the championship windows for NFL football teams are very, very slim. They just got their first one. They have to capitalize on the opportunity right now before, like you mentioned, before they have to give 150, 250, however many, the entire, Western hemisphere to Pat Mahomes and his free agent. Given him, they don't have to give it to him just yet. Franchise tag Chris Jones, I think, is the move, and just, take a run at it next year while you've still got some financial flexibility. But as you mentioned, I mean, go ahead, Cole. You look like you got something to say.
The problem is just this. If you franchise tag him and he doesn't want to play, that's just like losing a player for the rest of the year. If he sits out on the franchise tag and does a Le'Veon Bell, which is rumored to be a complete option for him in this upcoming season, that could be a move that they make to where you don't get anything out of him. And if you can't pay him and he's not already there, you might as well try and trade him, and then you get that contract later on. But you don't really have that negotiation because you still would have to do a sign and trade for him. That's why I think that if there is a reason he does walk and doesn't get the contract extension, they allow him to walk. Because if he gets franchise tag and he does not play, that's just like getting a guy who you're just wasting a roster spot for.
Yeah, I've been as pro player as possible in all of my takes since entering the media career, because that's what I am. I'm a former player, and that's what I speak to. And as a former player and as a pro player guy, I was all on this Le'Veon Bell hold out, get your money stuff until I saw the ramifications at the end of what all that fallout happened. And he did. He lost guaranteed money. He didn't get the guaranteed check that he thought he was going to get. By the time he got to free agency, by the time he finally got in there, his name had been drugged through the wash so much that these NFL owners, look, Cole, they're not going to continue to reward this kind of behavior. I know collusion. The NFL settled on that with Colin Kaepernick, and this isn't a Colin Kaepernick thing, but collusion. If Colin Kaepernick taught you anything, it's that collusion does happen. So the whole Le'Veon Bell thing happening and him sitting out, if you don't think NFL owners, if you don't think Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and all these guys are on their phones and on their conferences and in their back channel meetings talking about, guys, we cannot reward this holdout behavior, then you're just a little ignorant of what's going on. I would imagine these guys are talking about it all the time, how we're going to keep dragging this guy's name through the dirt. We're going to keep diminishing his value, because that franchise tag is one of the things the owners will continue to fight for. And honestly, Cole, free agency as much as I do. It's the biggest hindrance to the NFL Players Association that they've ever allowed in a collective bargaining agreement, ever. Hands down, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the players in free agency since, free agency existed. Since it became around, the NFL player at franchise tag, and they thought it was going to be great. Look, how great of an idea. You telling me I get guaranteed top 5 pay? That's awesome. But what they realize is that it's just going to hinder you from ever getting to a free, true market. On to the next guy. We already talked about Chris Jones. We think we've established his worth, probably going to get that. Big name in the free agency market, despite never really having put up the massive numbers, even had one of the worst. Talk about a contract year with some of these guys. This guy next on our list didn't really have one of those, and that's Jadeveon Clowney out of South Carolina, traded to Seattle this offseason and put up a career low 3.5 sacks this year for the Seahawks. Cole, what does the market value look like? And I'll talk about a little bit more about what this guy brings to the table other than the sack numbers here in a minute. But what's the market value looking like right now for a former number 1 overall draft pick?
Well, the biggest thing that I didn't like about him going to Seattle was they played him out of place. He was never supposed to be that defensive tackle that they kind of moved him into that 3, kind of 5 technique. He is an outside linebacker or a defensive end, depending on how you put him in a 3-4 system. You will play him as your multi-personal jack kind of position. That's what he was in Houston. He would put his hand in the dirt as a wide 9, or he would stand up and be a pass rusher. That's what I think he needs to go. He needs to go to a 3-4 defense. He's realized this is where I best fit. And a team that has the money and probably is just one player away, especially with losing Zadarius Smith last year, is the Baltimore Ravens. They need a pass rusher bad to add to their defense, especially pairing with Jalen Ferguson, who showed some promise as the 3rd-round pick this past offseason. I think a 5-year deal, not as much guaranteed money, a lot more of, come play. We'll give you the 5 years. We'll give you a $78 million contract, but maybe only 45 guaranteed would be enough to get the job done. They're a team that is a pass rusher away from being a legitimate powerhouse for the next couple seasons. They have their MVP quarterback. The offense is really well set. I think they're going to have enough draft collateral to draft the guys that they want for the future. I think that they've done a great job pairing up Eric DeCosta with John Harbaugh for this past season. And they have a defense that's very strong. If they just add one more pass rusher, such as Clowney, they will be in very good hands, and they have the money to do so. I think Baltimore is a perfect landing spot for Jadeveon.
To me, if I'm a defense, or a football team that struggles with stopping the run, this is the type of defensive end that I would go after. If I'm a team that's in search of sack production, Jadeveon Clowney's not the guy to go pay $10 million a year, $12 million a year, $14 million a year, whatever his market value ends up being. But if I need to stop the run, if I got a problem with it, this is the best run-stopping defensive end in all of football. I told you I was teasing a little bit what he brings to the table. This guy is a flat-out game wrecker in the run game. And you saw there at Houston, when he gets to play in an odd front defense, it's not about just rushing in a wide nine. The dude played Mike linebacker. He played outside linebacker. He played three technique. The Houston defense there with Romeo Crennel played him in so many different positions that, he would just wreck football games because people didn't know where he was coming from. And he can do all kinds of stuff all over the field, mostly in the run game. I think what he struggles with and what most people thought he was going to struggle with coming into the league, rushing off the edge, is that bend. He has explosiveness, but he can't get around guys that are 6'7" who just can literally take 2.5 kick steps and push them around the hoop because they're so long. And I know we're getting really technical here, but that's the reality of it. But when you get him, in slant games, my God, when you watch this guy run game techniques, when you watch him run slants and X techniques, oh my, he just destroys guards. One of the best bull rushes in all of professional football when caught off guard. But if you're expecting double-digit sacks, he's never done it in his career. He'll be a double-digit $1 million man on the contracts, but he'll never have 10 sacks. I don't think, because that's not what he does. But, at the end of the season, you'll look up and he leads your team in TFLs.
Yeah, but if you want to compare it, that's the thing. You will get a double digit in the 25 range with tackles for losses and sacks combined. That's for sure. He's one of the best run-stopping defensive ends, and that's the biggest thing. You have to play him at that defensive end role in a 3-4 system and allow him to be your run stopper. If you can pay that and you can have him make a name for himself in the run game, he is a perfect fit. And that's one thing that I do think Baltimore struggled with in the playoffs, was stopping the run. And Derrick Henry, a guy we're probably going to mention in a little bit, if they get him, a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, that is a terrifying threat to see with Jimmy Smith, Marlon Humphrey, with Earl Thomas, with, of course, you now have Jalen Ferguson. With that defense that's already in place up there, this is a very scary defense, and you just added one of the best premier run stoppers in the game.
100%. So we'll move on, and you already mentioned him. We're not going to wait any longer before talking about him. Derrick Henry, and you talk about a guy, we've already mentioned a couple of these guys really made some money in 2019 during the season, but Derrick Henry, holy smokes, that postseason run. Colt, talk to me whether or not you agree or disagree. Was there a more feared opponent headed into the postseason than Derrick Henry? Was there a football team or a player, a specific player, other than, you could say Pat Mahomes, but even that, it's a collective unit. Is there a single player that defenses feared more than Derrick Henry this postseason?
If you don't throw in Pat Mahomes, no, it's Derrick Henry. The way he finished the season with 3 straight 130-plus yard games. He's the first running back in, I believe, NFL history to rush for over 180-yard games in 3 straight games, including 2 playoff games. That is a terrifying thought to think of what he can do. The problem is, how much is a running back worth? And this was one season where he really kind of started breaking out. This is where I see the franchise tag coming in motion. You in Tennessee have to pay Ryan Tannehill, because if you don't know what your option is, but he is a guy who I do think is a lesser option kind of deal, where you can free up money in a little bit in a couple years to be able to go sign Derrick Henry and see what his value actually is. Back-to-back 1,000 rushing yard seasons is worth a lot of money, but is it worth a $45 million, $65 million contract? I don't think so. So if you franchise tag him with a $13 million kind of deal, and then he does it again next year, that is where I think the $50, $55 million for a running back comes into fruition. I don't see it this year, but I see John Robinson and staff keeping him in the Music City because of his production on the franchise tag.
Yeah, I mean, franchise tags are often used by NFL programs. I would most likely use them if I were an owner on the running back position, right? You're talking about delaying that inevitable of having to invest money on a position that most people find invaluable nowadays, or at least there's no value in it. So, one thing a lot of people would be questioning about Derrick Henry going into this offseason is the amount of carries, right? How many hits has he taken on his body? We all know he was loaded down in the back end of this, postseason. The last two postseasons, they've really fed the horse there with Derrick Henry. But, 804 career carries in 4 seasons, 303 came in the last season alone. Cole, but you would be wrong. Zeke Elliott, drafted in the same year in 2016, has over 1,100 career carries, almost pushing 12, has gone over 300 carries 3 of the 4 seasons, would have done it the 4th season had he not been suspended 6 games for, some chicanery off the field. So it seems like a lot of carries there in the NFL with Derrick Henry, and you may be right, but it is a lot. 804 is a lot over 4 years, just over obviously 200 a season. But my main concern most of the time with Alabama running backs, Cole, you were obviously a student during his time there. The only problem with Derrick Henry is 303 carries last year. He had 395 carries his junior Heisman winning season there in Alabama, 44 of them in the SEC championship game alone. So this is a guy who the history of carries dates back even to high school. We're talking about a guy who had over 9,000 career yards in high school. So, over 250, 300 carries every single year in a 12-game season. So the carries are adding up for Derrick Henry. I would just be wondering about whether or not he even makes it to that $40-50 million deal, Cole.
I mean, I think he makes it to that deal, but this is also a guy who I think is one of those short-term running backs. I don't see him being a 12, 14, 15-year kind of ball carrier. I see him being a 8 to 10-year kind of guy and then calling it quits, kind of like Barry Sanders did because of his health concerns. When you look at his best years, it's when he's rushing the ball over 250 carries a year. His rookie year, he didn't have to worry about that because he had DeMarco Murray in the backfield. Same with his second year. Last year, he didn't really have to worry about it as much because of Dion Lewis would be the change of pace back. This was his first year where he really started breaking out as the only option as the run game. And with that in mind, those are things you have to look at when you're trying to go and get this guy in free agency. If you want a guy like Derrick Henry, you have to have a secondary option because of if you do overuse him, eventually he will blow out a knee. He will blow out an ankle. He will miss some time because of an injury. And when that happens, you don't know what you're getting when he comes back. So you have to have a secondary option in place for a change of pace just to be able to make sure that this guy guarantees you all the production, $5 to $55 million contract that he will get. He will get by some team. We know he will because of his production he saw in college and the last 2 years. But you better have a secondary option just in case if anything happens.
All right, totally agree. On to our next guy, another Bama boy, Amari Cooper. And we talked about Chris Jones, Kansas City not technically, really being able to afford him to continue their successes up there on the defensive front. How about what Amari Cooper's done, especially to the performance and the development of Dak Prescott as a quarterback? How important is it for Dallas to hold on to Amari Cooper this offseason, Cole?
There's one receiver from that draft class of Amari Cooper that has gone in 4 of the 5 seasons for over 1,000 yards, and it is Amari Cooper. I don't know how you don't bring in this guy back, especially with the development that you saw from Prescott this year and also with an emerging star in Michael Gallup already on your roster. This is a guy that should have been signed a long time ago. I would have given him the deal before Ezekiel Elliott because running backs, they are a piece of the offense, but wide receivers who consistently put up those type of numbers. Even though he's not a touchdown guy, he's a possession guy. You're seeing an 85 to 115 catches per season, a guaranteed 1,000 yard season, and you're seeing at least, I would say, 6 to 7 touchdowns a year, career high in receiving yards and touchdowns this past year. He hasn't hit the double-digit mark, but he's been able to be that weapon that continues to make a name for himself across the field. If he does not go back to Dallas, Buffalo has to be automatically on this guy. You are missing a possession receiver. You're missing a guy up for Josh Allen. You had your speed. You have your slot. You need a possession. They have the money. Brandon Beane is not afraid, and Brian Dable, an Alabama guy, definitely would be able to work with someone like Amari Cooper. They will spend money to go get that other wide receiver and address those needs in the draft instead of going at wide receiver. I think he ends up in Dallas personally, but I do think Buffalo is a next option. I do.
Hey, man, I really do. I love the take, but the thing is, I really don't want to see Amari Cooper in Buffalo, man, just for his own sake. I mean, dude, wide receiver careers go to die in Buffalo. Name me the last dominant Buffalo wide receiver, Cole. I mean, I'll wait. I will absolutely wait. Give me even. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls with one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game. Or you can't name a wide receiver that's ever played in Buffalo. So I mean,
I know it's 88.
Yeah, no, you can't do it. The point proven, Cole. It's impossible. Okay, wide receivers' careers go to die in Buffalo. I just see it happen for Amari Cooper. I think 100% they cannot afford, even if Jerry Jones has got to, find more oil out there in Texas that doesn't exist. If it has to happen, they've got to pay Amari Cooper and keep him there on staff. And I think, as you do, that he ends up there. All right, on to our next guy. And I'm going to solo shot the screen for a second. It's Amari Cooper, right? AJ Green, right? University of Georgia guy, wide receiver, the last guy, didn't quite get 1,000 yards, neared it. The closest to do so since Terrence Edwards in 2002. Missed the 2019 season with an injury that happened in the first preseason game. It's a whole nother discussion to talk about whether or not the playing conditions were NFL caliber. They were at a swamp worth of a college field, had rained a ton there in the still at a college field playing on natural grass. Probably not something you want to do with a wide receiver in a professional staff heading into a football season. That's a whole nother discussion, but could be one of the most sought after free agents that we're going to talk about tonight. And for that better part, the whole entire offseason. Look, here's the deal. The doctors say this injury won't be a factor moving forward in his career, and that he should be fully healthy going forward. And this is a guy that, when healthy, has had 6 1,000-yard seasons since entering the league in 2011. In 2016, the man put up 964 yards in 10 games before he was knocked out for the year. Death, taxes, and a healthy AJ Green going for 1,000 yards guarantees every single year when healthy. I know every offseason everyone wants to talk about wide receivers that might potentially end up in New England, and that's all fun and fair, but I'll spare you the take there, even though that's probably a good landing spot. But imagine AJ Green, Cole, in Seattle, paired with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. The only thing he's got to do is stay healthy, and you got a 1,200-yard receiver almost guaranteed, one of the best in the game, and will 100% be the most sought-after wide receiver heading into this year's free agency. What say you, Cole Thompson?
Ooh, I like where your head is. I really do. I do think that is a good landing spot in Seattle because they do need another receiver, and you don't want to waste a draft pick on one, but a team that would waste a draft pick on one and also get a receiver that would definitely help build the program this upcoming year. I know I'm crazy. I don't care. Pair him with one of the best quarterbacks who needs one more weapon to go to a Super Bowl. He was that close this year.
Come on, get out.
I think he's going to Green Bay. 2-year contract. He will be a weapon for Aaron Rodgers. You will pair him with whoever they draft in one of their 2 first-round draft spots. You will pair him with probably a guy such as, I think, either Laviska Shenault, or you could even throw in a guy like, I think, Van Jefferson out of Florida. Pair him for the long-term option as the short-term guy in Green Bay. Get both of them one ring, at least Aaron Rodgers a second ring. You can get him for a valuable price, and wide receiver is a major market. They have a tight end in Jay Sternberger. They can use the money they release Jimmy Graham with to sign AJ Green. I think that is a perfect fit. The other one is Seattle. I will give you Seattle was my second pick, but I think Green Bay is the one that gets him.
How do you go through all of the Green Bay wide receivers and forget to mention Davante Adams? I mean, that would be absolutely dominant on the outside ends there with Davante Adams and AJ Green there in Green Bay. I love that fit. And talk about a deep threat. AJ Green, one of the best post route runners in the NFL right now, even coming off of an ankle surgery. So I think that would be incredible. Watching Aaron Rodgers throw deep balls to him would be great. Next guy on our list, we're going to talk some Hunter Henry, an Arkansas tight end prospect. And another guy that's had a little bit of trouble in his career staying healthy. This is a guy that's had problems staying on the field as well. A knee injury just his second year into the league. I don't know if exactly whether or not LA will end up signing him. Cole, I'll let you give your thoughts, and then I'll give you a little insider info because I may or may not be connected through a distant relative to Hunter Henry. Not a distant relative, friend of a friend, close friend of a friend. Go ahead, Cole.
Listen, there's a team that wants to bring back a quarterback. They need to find a way to go bring this guy back, and one of the biggest ways he was successful was by having a tight end. If you want Tom Brady back in New England, you bring a guy like either Austin Hooper or Hunter Henry to New England in Foxborough. I think that Hunter Henry, a guy who you can probably pay a little less money on a kind of a show it, prove it kind of deal, get a tight end, work with one of the best quarterbacks of all time, if not the GOAT quarterback of all time. This is the way you have to bring back Tom Brady. He wants to be around weapons. He wants to be around players who are already in place. You don't want to waste his pick on a tight end. So go ahead and build up your offensive line. Go build up another wide receiver with a pick in the second round. Go get Hunter Henry. Go pay him some money. Go give him a 3-year kind of deal, maybe worth $55 million. Bring him to Foxborough. Get your tight end back. The production died down for Tom Brady when he didn't have a tight end. This is why you bring in a guy like Hunter Henry to Foxborough.
Yeah, fun story here from you, Cole. And again, friend of a friend. All right, so in 2016, the year Hunter Henry was getting drafted, Bill Belichick told him at the combine, he said, Hunter, look, and I can't quite exactly quote this, but this is the borderline of the conversation behind doors. He said, Hunter, we really like your game, but I'm going to be honest with you, we won't be picking you. We're going to be too low down in the second round to even take you. We think you're a top second round player, but we'll be seeing you in a few years. Wink, wink. When you hit that first round of free agency, we will be hot and heavy after you because I absolutely love your game. What ended up happening? 2 months later, after the NFL Combine, Hunter Henry was the fourth pick in the second round. The Pats didn't pick till 60. They ended up taking a DB out of Cyrus Jones, a DB out of Alabama, and then here we are. A couple of years later, Hunter Henry's nearing free agency, and we don't really know what's going on out there in LA, man. I don't know who they can and can't afford to pay. They, whether or not they gave Melvin Gordon the deal, let loose to Phil Rivers. What's really going on? They got Joey Bosa coming up on free agency as well very soon. What's the deal with Melvin Ingram's contract? All that kind of stuff still looming. Derwin James, 2 years from hitting free agency as well. They've got major contract issues on their hands. Is this for a guy who's only played 12 games out of the last 24? Out of the last 32. I don't really know, but I do know that New England is heavily interested in this young man. And if you know anything about Belichick, he scouts you early, grabs you late when you're not exactly at the same value and same market that the rest of the league thinks you are. He brings you in at a cheaper price. And I think that's what's going to end up happening here with Hunter Henry. All right, Cole, I took the floor with the Georgia guy in Ryan Tannehill. Despite you being on a hot spot and despite some of our viewers giving us a little crap for your viewing in your video feed, I'm going to make you the primary feed here. Ryan Tannehill, tell me why he is a multi-million-dollar man. Tell me why he's a 4-5-year contract guy there in Tennessee. The floor is
simple. He is not a 4-year man. You are looking at a guy who has an injured past. You're looking at a guy who has been an average to maybe a slightly below average quarterback, gone to the playoffs one time in his career before this upcoming season. This is a guy that you bring back on a 2 to 3 year deal. When you look at some of these quarterbacks that we've seen, and Nick Foles and Brock Osweiler trying to have a breakout year, have a really solid season, even though the production maybe isn't at the highest level you want. You know that you are going to have a 31-year-old quarterback going on 32 in your locker room next season. You can now draft a quarterback in round 2, maybe a Jacob Eason, maybe a Jake Fromm. See what you can build off of them and have a guy who is a veteran talent, who has been in the system for a while. Maybe is a guy similar to Tannehill. Go draft that guy with your second pick and go ahead and add something else. Whether that be defensive back to replace Logan Ryan, a pass rusher, an offensive tackle to replace Jack Conklin if you lose him in free agency. But give Ryan Tannehill a 2-year deal because of the production and the chemistry on the offense was working with Tannehill. And you want to bring that back. But I don't think that you go out and you sign this guy for a multi $4 or $5 million deal. This is not a quarterback you want to waste. And when you've seen guys like Foles and guys such as Bradford and guys such as Osweiler take those deals and never work out, don't waste your money on a guy who has proven time and time again to be injured-ridden career. But you do know that he is successful. You do know that he can thrive in the Music City. Bring him back, franchise tag Derrick Henry, go out, spend your free agency money on someone else, and go draft whatever you need to replace whatever to keep Mike Vrabel in the winning circle. This is a team that I still think can win, and I do think that they are either going to be a 9-7 team or they're going to be a 11-5 team, depending on what they do. But they can be an 11-5 team with Ryan Tannehill if they surround him with the right weapons. I think a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option is great. Steve, I completely understand what you're saying, but here's the deal, buddy. If they bring options around him, they're going to be successful. Because guess what? 7-3 was what he did with the weapons around him. So if you want to come at me, Steve, I'm going to tell you right now, 9-7 wins the AFC South sometimes.
People out here, the whole audience is like, who the hell is this Steve guy? Why is he flaming Steve? Steve Highland. Cole just gave you the flames. You've been our main commenter tonight. We appreciate you for joining in. I'm on Steve's bandwagon. Get rid of Ryan Tannehill. Let's bring in somebody else average that can go 7 for 11 and hand the ball off to Derrick Henry.
And
get out of here.
It will work. 2 years, and you draft Jake Fromm in the 2nd round. Perfect deal. Because Jake Fromm needs at least
Better
1 year.
Better yet. No. Let Ryan Tannehill walk. We'll bring Blaine Gabbert in off the street, and then we'll bring in Jake Fromm. We'll let Blaine Gabbert start for 3 games. The Frommster will get in there. Jake Fromm from State Farm gets in there after a couple games. Boom. Titans are 9-7 after going 0-4.
If he plays this year, he's going to need insurance. He's going to be Jake needing State Farm.
Oh, Jesus. Hot takes galore coming from Mr. Cole Thompson. Y'all feel free to go give him a follow on Twitter. I'm sure he made some Georgia fans happy there. All right, we're a little bit behind schedule. Let's hit our last guy. We're going to skip DJ Humphries. Look, the market, I'm going to tell you right now, folks, DJ Humphries, the tackle from Florida, played like if here and there over the last 4 years, started 16 games as a rookie, played fairly well, got hurt for 2 seasons, played a full season last year. Apparently, SpotTrack.com thinks his worth or his value coming up in free agency is 5 years, $70 million. I'm going to tell you right now, if you give DJ Humphries 5 years, $70 million, you are absolutely flat out in trouble as a general manager. Your butt will be fired. Let's get on to Bud Dupree.
He's getting 5 years, $70 million. I'm just telling you that.
Please, somebody give him. It's oh my God. All right, Bud Dupree, another guy, made himself a ton of money. Guy who hadn't had over 9 sacks in his career. Last year had 11.5 there in Pittsburgh. Cole, what is the latest on Bud Dupree, the defensive end edge rusher out of Kentucky?
We mentioned a team a little earlier that this guy was already playing for and a guy that you want to go to this team. And if they're going to make a move in free agency, this is the move I think Seattle makes. Seattle needs a pass rusher. They need to go out and they need to go get a guy who I definitely think can add some pressure off the edge. They don't really have that 3rd linebacker who can do that. I think Bud Dupree can be a mix, kind of what they need to be, but he's a little more I think he's a little more better for the 4-3 system that they run out in Pete Carroll's defense. I think that this would be a spot he could land for the right price. They want a pass rusher, not a run stopper. Bud Dupree is a pass rusher, not a run stopper. Go ahead and pay him that $4 million 4-year deal, 5th-year option. This is a guy who, if you wanted what you wanted from Clowney, you will get out of Bud Dupree.
You know what I find funny, Cole? We're sitting here talking about Seattle needing an edge rusher and Seattle needing a pass rusher. They had one. His name was Frank Clark. They traded him away. And he ended up winning a Super Bowl. So, I mean, it's so funny, you know, bird in the hand, worth 2 in the bush. I mean, you had Frank Clark on your roster, and whether or not you wanted to pay him, whether or not you were going to give him what he was due and what he ended up getting there in Kansas City, which I think was close to $110 million, something like that, something crazy, over $100 million for like 5 years. I don't know if he's worth that, but he proved his worth year 1. And guess what? Kansas City's general manager will never hear flack about that signing ever. In the history, as long as he is alive, he brought a championship back to Kansas City and was the main talking piece behind the entire thing. Who was the main driving force during the media circus of Super Bowl week? Frank Clark. He was saying everything. All you had to do was stick a microphone in his face. So, I mean, he made his worth there. And Seattle's sitting here 12 months later, and they're like, oh, crap, we don't have a pass rusher. Well, no, you don't. You gave him away. And at least you gave him away to the AFC, but you gave him away. And I just don't. If I'm a general. For one first-round pick, and like I would say, the guarantees, what you know, it's like what we talked about with Oakland, and Oakland may appear to look halfway decent right now with what they turned into Josh Jacobs, but guess what? That's a 6-year career before we're talking about him the same way we're talking about Derrick Henry, and we still don't know about what's going on with Farrell, and that's what turned out of Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is going to be one of the best edge rushers Cole and I's generation has ever seen. And they gave him away for Josh Jacobs and Farrell. I mean, I don't understand these general managers. Yeah, and whoever's going to be the first-round pick this year. But, Cole, I just don't understand these general managers who think that they're so good at a lottery game. That's all the draft is. We can sit. I think I'm one of the best talent. I think that there are. And if you haven't seen my YouTube page, I'm arrogant enough to tell you that. But I'm going to tell you right now, I miss on 60 or 40, 50% of the guys I evaluate, and these NFL guys do too. And for them to sit there and say, yeah, I got confidence that the 2 first-rounders you're going to give me back for Khalil Mack, that I'm going to find and pick a player as good or nearing as good and as impactful as a Khalil Mack or a Frank Clark. How arrogant do you have to be in a world that 50-50 is a good job? If you hit 50% of your first-round picks, you will keep your job as an NFL evaluator. I mean, that's cold hard facts, Cole. Am I right? 50%. No, you're very if you hit 50% of them, you are going to keep your job as an NFL GM. And these guys continue to trade proven players because of what? Because of a salary cap that's going to go up 10 to 15% the very next offseason
in general. Or you just don't want to pay them. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Because you just don't want to pay them. I don't understand it. I really don't. You draft a guy in hopes that he's going to be really, really great. He gets really, really great, and then you don't want to pay him. It's not like the case in Atlanta where they waste a first-round pick. Not really waste because they got a 20-sack season out of him, but you get 4 years worth of Vic Beasley, and then you let the world know you're not going to re-sign him. You let him go, and that's okay because he didn't live up to the first-round talent. But Frank Clark, who is a third or fourth round draft pick because of some of the trouble that he got in there in Michigan. And you're just going to, we hit on absolute grand slam. We're going to let him walk because he wants $100 million. Give the guy $100 million. Give it to him because you got room for it, or at least you will. That's my theory. So I think that's where we're going to wrap up, Cole. Tell the people where they can find all your great stuff. We are way over the time limit tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey guys, really simple. Steve, by the way, he did not get cut, Beasley. He actually got just wasn't re-signed. So that's one thing you gotta realize. He wasn't re-signed. I mean, I get where he's coming from, but yeah, I don't think Atlanta's an option for budget. I just don't. So I'm just letting you know that. You can follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. You can also check out all my great work at allaggies.com. And you can check out some of my other freestyle stuff. You can just follow me right at Mr. Cole Thompson. I post any single thing, including an article I'm doing for a freelancing gig right here at Mr. Cole Thompson. Got to do it backwards. At Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, to make sure that you follow it, I have an article coming out in the morning about all these guys, where I do think they land and what they will actually make. Thanks, guys.
Man, my guys really just used me to come on here and get a whole bunch of video content for his article he's writing tomorrow. I see you, Cole. Hey, you smart. And guess what? You earned a fan in Steve Highland tonight. Yeah, he's really, really a big lover of you. All right, Cole, we'll patch you out. Appreciate you for joining us. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, this has been SEC Nightly. I hope the feed, other than Cole's feed was atrocious tonight. I will let you know that. And the podcast audience probably knew that too. It's probably been choppy in and out. For that, I apologize. But what I can tell you is the green screen's gone. The fancy green screen's gone. But my feed has been nice and clean tonight, I would hope. And if it hasn't been, let me know. Here we'll jump in and send you out the way we brought you in. And that's with the dopest and coldest intro music in the history of the world. And when I download it for free, royalty free. How about that? Let's find it real quickly. I apologize for my delayed reaction. It's somewhere on here. We'll find it. How are you guys tonight? SEC Nightly, Monday through Friday. We will always do this. I just want to hear this outro one more time. It's not that big of a deal. But I love this music, and I think it's pretty dope. If you guys could, please give us a thumbs up on those Facebook feeds, wherever you found us. We appreciate you for showing us some support. Let's send you out here with our instrumental. I finally got it loaded up. I've done enough pro freelancing or, talking. Let's send you out right here with the dopest and coldest. Or not. Good Lord, guys. I apologize. We'll just say, oh, there it goes. Hey. I can't believe y'all waited around for that. That is some trash on my end. I apologize, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night, right? See you tomorrow night here on SEC Nightly, Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. I don't know where you guys are at, where you're located, but I'm here on the East Coast. Very East Coast vibe, too. Very melodic, very nighttime, very SEC Nightly feed. Follow the show on Twitter at SEC Nightly. Follow me on Twitter at Brooks Austin SI. I don't know if I got a banner for it. Probably don't. We appreciate you guys for joining in, jumping in whenever you found it. If you missed any part of tonight's broadcast, check us out on the podcast, wherever you find your podcast, whether it be Spreaker, iTunes, whatever the other nonsense is. I've heard of 100 different places to find podcasts. I guarantee you we're there. Just search SEC Nightly. We are the only one. Part of the reason we picked out the name. Steve Highland, West Coast. Appreciate you for joining us out there, baby. That's West Coast time. It's a little West, East Coast, but got that West Coast kind of bump, right? Got the bass line of the East Coast, the twang and the vibe of the West Coast. How about that? We'll ride it into the break. We appreciate you guys for watching tonight. We'll see you next time here on SEC Nightly. As always, I've been your humble host, Brooks Austin.